Chapter 14. Of course, I believed Madame Spinella to blame. She'd several times called the authorities to complain about Holly. It didn't occur to me the affair could have dire dimensions until that evening when Joe Bell showed up, flourishing the newspapers. He was too agitated to speak sensibly. He caroused the room, hitting his fists together while I read the accounts. Then he said, "You think it's so? She was mixed up in this lousy business?" Well, yes. He popped the Tums in his mouth and, glaring at me, chewed it as though he were crunching my bones. "Boy, that's rotten. And you mean to be a friend? What a bastard." Just a minute. I didn't say she was involved knowingly. She wasn't. But there, she did do it. Carry messages and whatnot. He said, "Take it pretty calm, don't you? Jesus, she could get 10 years. More." He yanked the papers away from me. "You know her friends? The rich fellas? Come down to the bar. We'll start phoning. Our girl's going to need fancier shysters than I could afford." I was too sore and shaky to dress myself. Joe Bell had to help. Back at his bar, he propped me in the telephone booth with a triple martini and a brandy tumbler full of coins. But I couldn't think who to contact. Jose was in Washington, and I had no notion where to reach him there. Rusty Trawler? Not that bastard. Only what other friends of hers did I know? Perhaps she'd been right when she'd said she had none. Not really. I put through a call to Crestview 56958 in Beverly Hills. The number long-distance information gave me for O.J. Berman. The person who answered said Mr. Berman was having a massage and couldn't be disturbed. "Sorry, try later." Joe Bell was incensed. Told me I should have said it was a life and death matter, and he insisted on my trying Rusty. First I spoke to Mr. Trawler's butler. "Mr. and Mrs. Trawler," he announced, "were at dinner, and might he take a message?" Joe Bell shouted into the receiver, "This is urgent, mister. Life and death." The outcome was that I found myself listening, to the former Mag Wildwood. "Are you Starker?" she demanded. "My husband and I will positively sue anyone who attempts to connect our names with that row, vaulting and degenerate girl. I always knew she was a hop head with no more morals than a hound bitch in heat. Prison is where she belongs, and my husband agrees 100%. We will positively sue anyone who..." Hanging up, I remembered old Doc down in Tulip, Texas, but no. Holly wouldn't like it if I called him. She'd kill me good. I rang California again. The circuits were busy, stayed busy. And by the time O.J. Berman was on the line, I'd emptied so many martinis, he had to tell me why I was phoning him. "About that kid? I know already. I spoke already to Iggy Feidelstein. Iggy's the best shingle in New York. I said, 'Iggy, you can take care of it. Send me the bill. Only keep my name anonymous, see?' Well, I owe the kid something. Not that I owe her anything. You want to come down to it. She's crazy, a phony. But a real phony, you know. Anyway, they only got her in 10,000 bail. Don't worry, Iggy'll spring her tonight. It wouldn't surprise me she's home already." Chapter 15. But she wasn't, nor had she returned the next morning when I went down to feed her cat. Having no key to the apartment, I used the fire escape and gained entrance through a window. The cat was in the bedroom, and he was not alone. A man was there, crouching over a suitcase. The two of us, each thinking the other a burglar, exchanged uncomfortable stares as I stepped through the window. He had a pretty face, lacquered hair. He resembled Jose. Moreover, the suitcase he'd been packing contained the wardrobe Jose kept at Holly's. The shoes and suits she fussed over was always carting to members and cleaners. And I said, certain it was so, "Did Mr. Ibarra Jaeger send you?" "I am the cousin," he said with a wary grin. and just penetrable accent. "Where is Jose?" He repeated the question, as though translating it into another language. "Ah, where she is. She is wailing," he said, and seeming to dismiss me, resumed his valet activities. So the diplomat was planning a powder. Well, I wasn't amazed, or in the slightest sorry. Still, what a heartbreaking stunt. "He ought to be horsewhipped." The cousin giggled. I'm sure he understood me. He shut the suitcase and produced a letter. "My cousin, she asked me leave that for his chum. You will oblige?" On the envelope was scribbled, "For Miss H. Golightly, courtesy bearer." I sat down on Holly's bed and hugged Holly's cat to me, and felt as badly for Holly, every iota, as she could feel for herself. Yes, I will oblige. Chapter 16. And I did, without the least wanting to. But I hadn't the courage to destroy the letter, or the willpower to keep it in my pocket when Holly very tentatively inquired if by any chance, I'd had news of Jose. It was 2 mornings later. I was sitting by her bedside, in a room that reeked of iodine and bedpans, a hospital room. She had been there since the night of her arrest. "Well, darling," she greeted me as I tiptoed toward her, carrying a carton of picayune cigarettes and a wheel of new autumn violets. "I lost the air." She looked not quite 12 years. Her pale vanilla hair brushed back, her eyes, for one minus their dark glasses, clear as rainwater. One couldn't believe how ill she'd been. Yet it was true. Christ, I nearly cooled. No fooling. The fat woman almost had me. She was yakking up a storm. I guess I couldn't have told you about the fat woman, since I didn't know about her myself until my brother died. Right away I was wondering where he'd gone, what it meant, Fred's dying. And then I saw her. She was there in the room with me, and she had Fred cradled in her arms, a fat mean red bitch rocking in a rocking chair with Fred on her lap and laughing like a brass band. The mockery of it! But it's all that's ahead for us, my friend. This comedienne waiting to give you the old razz. Now do you see why I went crazy and broke everything? Except for the lawyer O.J. Berman had hired, I was the only visitor she had been allowed. Her room was shared by other patients, a trio of triplet-like ladies who, examining me with an interest not unkind but total, speculated in whispered Italian. Holly explained that, "They think you're my downfall, darling, the fella what done me wrong." And, to a suggestion that she set them straight, replied, "I can't. They don't speak English. Anyway, I wouldn't dream of spoiling their fun." It was then that she asked about Jose. The instant she saw the letter, she squinted her eyes and bent her lips in a tough, tiny smile that advanced her age immeasurably. "Darling," she instructed me, "would you reach in the drawer there and give me my purse? A girl doesn't read this sort of thing without her lipstick." Guided by a compact mirror, she powdered, painted every vestige of 12-year-old out of her face. She shaped her lips with one tube, colored her cheeks from another. She penciled the rims of her eyes, blued the lids, sprinkled her neck with 4711, attached pearls to her ears, and donned her dark glasses. Thus armored, and after a displeased appraisal of her manicure's shabby condition, she ripped open the letter and let her eyes race through it, while her stony small smile grew smaller and harder. Eventually, she asked for a picayune, took a puff. "Tastes bum, but divine," she said, and, tossing me the letter, "Maybe this will come in handy. If you ever write a rat romance, don't be hoggy. Read it aloud. I'd like to hear it myself. It began, "My dearest little girl," Holly at once interrupted. She wanted to know what I thought of the handwriting. I thought nothing. A tight, highly legible, uneccentric script. "It's him to a T, buttoned up and constipated," she declared. "Go on." "My dearest little girl, I have loved you knowing you were not as others, but conceive of my despair upon discovering in such a brutal and public style how very different you are from the manner of woman a man of my faith and career could hope to make his wife. Verily, I grieve for the disgrace of your present circumstance, and do not find it in my heart to add my condemn to the condemn that surrounds you. So I hope you will find it in your heart not to condemn me. I have my family to protect and my name, and I am a coward where those institutions enter. Forget me, beautiful child. I am no longer here. I am gone. But may God always be with you and your child. May God be not the same as Jose." Well, in a way it seems quite honest and even touching. Touching, that square-ball jazz. But after all, he says he's a coward, and from his point of view, you must see. Holly, however, did not want to admit that she saw. Yet her face, despite its cosmetic disguise, confessed it. "All right, he's not a rat without reason. A supersized King Kong-type rat like Rusty, Benny Shacklet. But oh, gee, golly goddamn," she said, jamming a fist into her mouth like a bawling baby. "I did love him, the rat." The Italian trio imagined a lover's Christ and, placing the blame for Holly's groanings where they felt it belonged, tut-tutted their tongues at me. I was flattered, proud that anyone should think that Holly cared for me. She quieted when I offered her another cigarette. She swallowed and said, "Bless you, Buster, and bless you for being such a bad jockey. If I hadn't had to play Calamity Jane, I'd still be looking forward to the grub in an unwed mama's home. Strenuous exercise, that's what did the trick. But I've scared la merde out of the whole badge department by saying it was because Miss Dykeroo slapped me. Yes, sir, I can sue them on several counts, including false arrest." Until then, we'd skirted mention of her more sinister tribulations, and the jesting reference to them seemed appalling, pathetic, so definitely did it reveal how incapable she was of recognizing the bleak realities before her. "Now, Holly," I said, thinking, be strong, mature, an uncle. "Now, Holly, we can't treat it as a joke. We have to make plans." "You're too young to be stuffy, too small. By the way, what business is it of yours?" "None, except you're my friend and I'm worried. I mean to know what you intend doing." She rubbed her nose and concentrated on the ceiling. "Today's Wednesday, isn't it? So I suppose I'll sleep until Saturday. Really get a good schluffen. Saturday morning, I'll skip out to the bank, and I'll stop by the apartment and pick up a nightgown or two and my Mainbacher. Following which, I'll report to Idlewild, where, as you damn well know, I have a perfectly fine reservation on a perfectly fine plane, and since you're such a friend, I'll let you wave me off. Please stop shaking your head." Holly, you can't do that." "Et pourquoi pas? I'm not hot-footing after Jose, if that's what you suppose. According to my census, he's strictly a citizen of Limboville. It's only, why should I waste a perfectly fine ticket? Already paid for? Besides, I've never been to Brazil." "Just what kind of pills have they been feeding you here? Can't you realize you're under a criminal indictment? If they catch you jumping bail, they'll throw away the key. Even if you get away with it, you'll never be able to come home. Well, so, tough titty. Anyway, home is where you feel at home. I'm still looking. No, Holly, it's stupid. You're innocent. You've got to stick it out. She said, "Rah, team rah," and blew smoke in my face. She was impressed, however. Her eyes were dilated by unhappy visions, as were mine. Iron rooms, steel corridors of gradually closing doors. "Oh, screw it," she said, and stabbed out her cigarette. "I have a fair chance they won't catch me, provided you keep your bush for me. Look, don't despise me, darling." She put her hand over mine and pressed it with sudden immense sincerity. "I haven't much choice. I talked it over with the lawyer. Oh, I didn't tell him anything regarding Rio. He tipped the Badgers himself, rather than lose his fee, to say nothing of the nickels O.J. put up for bail. Bless O.J.'s heart, but once on the coast I helped him win more than 10 thou in a single poker hand. We're square. Now here's the real shake. All the Badgers want from me is a couple of free grabs at my services as a state's witness against Sally. Nobody has any intentions of prosecuting me. They haven't a ghost of a case. Well, I may be rotten to the core, Maud, but testify against a friend I will not. Not if they can prove he doped Sister Kenny. My yardstick is how somebody treats me. And old Sally, all right, he wasn't absolutely white with me. Say he took a slight advantage. Just the same, Sally's an okay shooter. And I'd let the fat woman snatch me sooner than help the law boys pin him down. Tilting her compact mirror above her face, smoothing her lipstick with a crooked pinky, she said, "And to be honest, that isn't all. Certain shades of limelight wreck a girl's complexion. Even if a jury gave me the Purple Heart, this neighborhood holds no future. They'd still have every rope from LaRue's to Perona's Bar and Grill. Take my word, I'd be about as welcome as Mr. Frankie Campbell. And if you lived off my particular talents, Cookie, you'd understand the kind of bankruptcy I'm describing. I don't just fancy a fade-out that finds me belly-bumping around Roseland with a pack of West Side hillbillies, while the excellent Madame Trawler sachets her twat in and out of Tiffany's. I couldn't take it. Give me the fat woman any day." A nurse, soft shooing into the room, advised that visiting hours were over. Holly started to complain and was curtailed by having a thermometer popped in her mouth. But as I took leave, she unstoppered herself to say, "Do me a favor, darling. Call up the Times or whatever you call and get a list of the 50 richest men in Brazil. I'm not kidding, the 50 richest, regardless of race or color. Another favor, poke around my apartment till you find that medal you gave me, the St. Christopher. I'll need it for the trip."